Good morning. I've just been waiting for a few more people to jump on. Sorry, we're running a little bit late this morning. Okay, we'll get started. Today's actions will be held on the lands of the original animals who inhabited and preserved them, and the lands of the traditional custodians, clans of the Kulin Nation. We acknowledge that colonisation has and continues to have devastating impacts on that land, water, animals, and First Nations communities and culture. We are inspired by their resilience and support all efforts for Aboriginal sovereignty. My name is Kristen and I'm the Director of Vegan Rising. I'm really grateful to the people who will be joining us this morning. We're going live both on the Vegan Rising page and the Save Movement page. And we're really grateful to the Save Movement for having us with them today so that we can reach more people around the world. Today is a sad day in Victoria, Australia, where we're based. Today, Ag-Gag laws come into place after being passed through both houses of the state parliament a few months ago. This law was introduced by the Labor government and also supported by all Liberals and Nationals, and of course, along with the minor parties and independents, aside from a few. 121 of our 128 members of parliament voted to single out animal rights activists and rescuers from the rest of society. For those who may be unaware, Ag-Gag is laws specifically targeted at activists and whistleblowers who expose the atrocities that occur in animal agriculture industries. These laws come in many forms and vary in severity, but all are intentionally designed for the same purpose: to protect this violent and destructive industry. In the case of Victoria, activists now face extraordinary fines if found trespassing on land used for animal agriculture. Our state already has sufficient laws for trespass, and this fact was highlighted by many through the inquiry into the impact of animal rights activism on animal agriculture, which preceded the law changes, including Victoria Police and a member of their own party, the Labor Party, who introduced these laws. During the painful debate in Parliament, ministers, including many from the Labor Party, lied, claiming we don't need activists to help animals in agriculture from pain and suffering, as there are already agencies tasked with that responsibility. So we just want you to take a look at what that actually looks like. Thank you for watching through that. So this footage that you've just seen was captured in recent months, weeks, and even days. So this footage, most of it, has essentially been captured since Ag-Gag passed the upper house before it coming into power today. So that makes the point that at the time when these politicians were talking about how much farmers love their animals and how activists are the criminals, this was all going on during that period. So today we have several teams outside some of the very locations featured in our short video. This is just a snippet of the horrors that occur across this state. We're here to call out Parliament for their failure to protect the most vulnerable in our society and for the lies they've told. This new law, introduced by Vic Labor, targets the only people who expose what really goes on behind closed doors in our morally bankrupt food and clothing system. Today we will prove that Labor lies and there is no agency that exists to protect these animals from the people inflicting this extreme cruelty and abuse, because it is the abuse that is protected by law, not the victims. It is inherent and systemic. And in the most extreme cases where action can be taken, the agencies responsible for doing so lack the resources and the will. The law is definitely on the abuser's side, and our politicians are punishing the very people who are demonstrating that to the world. So I just want to cross over to our first guest today, which is Helen. I'm just going to bring Helen in now. Just give me 1 second. Hi, Helen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Christine. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, that's great.
Hi. Good. Good.
So how's it going there? Where are you today?
So we're in outside a chicken shed in Hastings in Melbourne, Victoria. And it's the same chicken shed that with the vegan rising footage that was released today that everyone's just watched, showing the animal abuse and extreme suffering of sick and injured chickens. Happening inside this shed behind me are many sentient beings suffering with many serious health issues, like heart disease, growth disorders. Many of them are crippled, unable to reach any food and water, which means that they're likely to die of starvation. There's also harsh chemicals inside these sheds, like ammonia, that burns their eyes, their skin, and their lungs. Many of them have broken bones, ruptured tendons, splay legs, due to their unnatural body weight, which is caused by rapid growth, as you know. So these confinement systems can hold up to 320,000 chickens. So that's about eight sheds, each holding about 40,000, I would say. Which also means that they have little to no room to move at all. So I don't know if you can see the shed behind me. We're not entirely sure how many sheds are on at this location. So they also spend about 80% of their time in these horrific conditions, lying down in their own waste. And then at about 5 weeks old, due to chronic pain and overworked lungs, 6 weeks old, they're forced into small crates and then sent off to the slaughterhouse to be violently killed. But the reason we're here today is because during the Ag-Gag debate in the Victorian Parliament, as you mentioned already, Labour MP Gail Tierney stated that animals are not in need of activists to protect their welfare because it's now the responsibility of Agriculture Victoria, the RSPCA and Victoria Police to help sick and injured animals, as they have sole legal right to entry. So we're now going to find out if that is actually the case, and we're going to call the RSPCA to make an emergency cruelty complaint. So,
Okay, thanks, Helen.
okay.
We'll let you go. We'll let you quickly make that call, and we'll listen from this end if that's okay.
Yep. Hopefully they'll answer, not put us on hold for too long.
No worries. So just to clarify, where Helen and the team are today is outside a chicken factory in Hastings, which is the exact same factory that we were sent footage from. There's 6 sheds on this property, and that was the what they call broiler chickens, the chickens raised for their flesh, who were all suffering horrifically, as you would have seen in that video. And this was taken at the time that the Ag-Gag debate was happening in Parliament, and also very recently as well. So the chickens that are suffering in that video would have either passed already or are still in that shed. If they've survived so far, they're probably just about ready to be killed soon. So yeah, that's where we're told they are protected from suffering, and as you've seen, that is not at all the case. So we'll see what the authorities say when we let them know what's going inside the shed.
You can hear me.
So when the debate was happening, AJP MP Andy Medic, Animal Justice Party that is, stated that he would like to introduce an amendment into the bill which would allow whistleblowers or just anyone walking down the road who saw an animal that was suffering to be able to be exempt from these extraordinary penalties if they were to be helping an animal in need. And the response to that was, as Helen just told us from Galtini, from the Labor Party, was that we don't need to do that because there's agencies that will act urgently on these matters. So right now we've got tens of thousands of birds that are urgently in need, and we've been on hold for how long so far? So the idea that we can call on someone to suddenly run and be there is a ludicrous proposal to put forward, and it blows my mind that these people can even hold a straight face when they make these ludicrous claims. Who do they think these angels in angel wings are going to fly down and suddenly save all these birds from their suffering? I mean, there's millions of them across the state that are in this way. So we're still on hold with RSPCA now, and meanwhile the birds are struggling to breathe, struggling to walk, haven't eaten or had water for days, maybe weeks. They'd be dead if they hadn't had it for weeks, possibly days. There were birds that were dead in that footage that we saw. So there's plenty more dying right now, and we're just wondering where these emergency services for animals are. Are you still on hold, Helen?
It's on hold.
Still on hold. Oh, I can hear someone. No? Okay. This is our animal emergency service. Helen, can you hear me? No. I might cross over to our next guest and see how they're going at their location. Oh, here we go. Oh, okay. Still on hold.
still on hold.
Helen, if you can hear me, we're going to just check on the next person's location, and we'll come back to you and see how long you've had to wait for this animal emergency service. We'll be back with you really soon. You can tell us
sorry,
how that went. That's okay.
We're still on hold, so
That's okay.
hopefully someone will soon.
That's all right. Can you hear me, Helen? Sorry, I was just saying.
Yes, I can hear you. Yep.
We'll go over to visit someone else, and we'll come back to you and find out what happened and how long it took them to answer, and
Sure.
we'll see where you're at. Okay. Good luck.
No worries.
You.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Sorry.
Hi, Gary. How are you?
Kristen.
Hi. Where?
Good chilly morning.
It is. Who have you got there with? You got some friends behind you, and where are you today?
Have, so we'll jump into it.
Yep, go for it.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us. Firstly, acknowledging the traditional guardians and protectors of this land and their suffering caused by the sheep industry. I'm Gary Hall, and I'm here today with the Vegan Rising team, standing on public land. However, the individuals on the other side of the fence stand no hope. Many of the documented cases of suffering sheep released today in the Vegan Rising footage were taken from this location in Western Victoria, this picturesque green setting behind us here now. A recent complaint has been made against the property we highlight today, and it's not the first. No action and zero transparency in the complaint process raises huge concerns regarding the responsible department's willingness to act. These sheep in the paddock behind us have endured a multitude of issues over many years, ranging from no parasite or worm treatment, shearing injuries turned infectious, young pregnancies, starvation, unassisted birthing, and the standard treatment of newborn lambs left to suffer and die. Animals that should be protected by law are recklessly and rampantly not covered by anything. The animals shown in the footage still lay reported and very much reportable. Nothing will happen in regards to punishment. Those animals are not protected by law. There is no justice for the animals caught in a smoke and mirror system, and what I would consider a fake welfare system, only exposed when whistleblowers document the truth. Animals suffering because of negligent practices is commonplace in the sheep industry, with absolutely no shortage of cruel operators in this area that I'm standing now. Hundreds of screaming souls with no justice served. Their suffering means nothing in Australia. And here's one of many reasons why. Today, Ag-Gag commenced in Victoria. 121 of 128 members of Parliament voted to single out animal rights activists, rescuers and whistleblowers. They now face exaggerated fines, outrageous fines. We've found trespassing on land used for agriculture, trespassing over that fence to save a life. Today we have several teams outside locations featured in the short video released today. This is just a snippet of the horrors that occur across the state and very much across the country, as we're well aware. We're here to call out the government for their failure to protect the vulnerable, animals trapped in an exploitative farming system. This new law introduced by the Victorian Labor government targets the only people who expose what really goes on behind closed doors. in a morally bankrupt food and clothing system. In the process, manipulated the truth by stating in Parliament there are existing agencies who protect these animals from suffering, neglect and abuse. Today we highlight the fact there is no existing agency to protect farm animals from the people exploiting them for profits. It is the abuse that is protected by law, even written into our regulations as standard practices in the industry. Agriculture Victoria is tasked with oversight and the responsibility, the same department established to protect and foster farming practices. In extreme and rare cases where action may be taken, the agencies responsible for doing so lack the resources and the will. The law allows abuse and reckless behaviour with little ability or motivation to prosecute. Our politicians are punishing the very people trying to expose the truth and change for the better, change for a better world. Just 7 out of 128 politicians voted against Ag-Gag, which further demonstrates the desperate need to end this cycle of agriculture power led by a Liberal and Labor system. We must vote for minor parties and independents who demonstrate logic, compassion, not those who punish people willing to expose the truth and make the world a better place. A better place starts with you. Help us make it so. Thanks for being with us today. Back to you, Kristen.
Thanks heaps, Gary. So just to clarify, a lot of that footage we saw was from the very paddock behind you, and my understanding is complaints has already been made, or several complaints have been made over time and also recently to Agriculture Victoria, who is responsible.
This property has been highlighted for many years by locals and whistleblowers, activists, as being a significant cruel property.
Yeah, and you, have you ever seen action taken at all?
Never. Generally, if we see an inspector turn up, quite often they pretend that they're the farmer's friend, and the person notifying authorities tends to hop on the back burner. And almost in one case, I recall, the whistleblower was mocked. The inspector and the farmer stood back, with bodies laying on the ground, and laughed at the person who called that in for those suffering bodies.
Right.
So as I said, the lack of transparency in the reporting process leaves any member of the public not knowing what the outcome is, in emotional turmoil, not knowing what happened to those suffering animals they witnessed.
Yeah. And I imagine through the winter particularly, you're seeing lambs everywhere, dead lambs just scattered through the paddocks.
Behind us could have 3 dead lambs a night, quite easily. So, and given the situation here where there's young mothers breeding, the pregnant ewes are full of worms, they're all passing away, or they're dropping their lambs for their own survival because they're not healthy enough to raise those lambs, so they leave them. Much to what the industry says, sheep are very clever and they will protect themselves first. If they're not healthy enough to feed, they will drop their lamb, and that's what happens with poor husbandry. So if the ewes are unhealthy, they won't look after the lamb, so they're not healthy enough to look after them, so therefore the death toll climbs. There's no laws to prevent that. There's no regulation, no punishment for not protecting those animals.
And in the summer, I imagine you see horrific things as well happening. In the winter, I believe you've seen the sheep have been shorn in the coldest part of winter as well.
Yes. Good
it's
point.
Common practice.
Everywhere, 90% of sheep here have been shorn, and they typically get shorn on the first coldest day of the year, strangely enough, which baffles all of us that watch the industry why they time it so perfectly with the coldest day, first cold day.
And then in the summer, I imagine there's doesn't look like there's any shelter at all there, and people from Australia know how intense our summers are, and they're just left to suffer in that heat, and no one is there to take any action at all to protect these animals from that either. So thanks so much, Gary, for explaining that to us. We're really grateful, and it's great to bring. We focus a lot on the sheds that confine these animals, because people tend to think that when you've got a beautiful green paddock and it's this idyllic surrounding, that everything's great on the other side and animals have this great life. But as I commonly say, on closer inspection, you realise it's a morgue over there in these paddocks. Basically, there's always suffering and dying going on across Australian sheep paddocks. The wool and the lamb industry is really horrific and doesn't get the attention it really deserves.
Doesn't. It's flying under the radar. It's, as you can see, it's not drawn to your attention what's going on in this paddock. It looks like a beautiful green paddock with happy sheep. It's not. It's only because the whistleblowers documenting this property that we know what's actually going on in the back.
Right.
Bow's paddock, as we call it, because it's horrific. So,
yeah.
So it's going to set our example today that the department hasn't actioned this farmer up to date, and we only have documented proof from this property from whistleblowers, activists coming in here and documenting the truth.
Yeah, who are now criminalised even further. Thanks so much, Gary. We'll chat with you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for being there, everyone. Bye. So now we're going to go over to our third guest today, who is, we'll let her introduce where she is. Are you there, Bree? Can you hear me, Bree?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Great. Yeah. Thanks for being with us today, everyone. Where are you this morning?
We are standing in the front of a duck and egg meat farm in Currabrook that's registered as Golden Duck Farm.
Yeah, right. And is this, what have you just seen? You told me that you saw something when you arrived out the front there. Is that right? This morning?
Yeah, so when we arrived, they must have cleaned some of the sheds out, and there were dead ducks in front of the sheds.
Right.
But they've come and cleaned them up since then, but we did take some extra footage of that.
Great, excellent. So yeah, what do you know about this property?
Well, we so the suffering that you saw in the video of the ducks from that vegan rising footage that came out this morning is mostly from these sheds behind us. There are 4 sheds, 5 sheds, yeah. 4 of them are for meat and 1 of them is for eggs. And so, yeah, most of the footage you saw this morning was from these sheds. Some of it, a small portion of it, is from the previous location of the same organisation, showing that they have a pattern of animal abuse. They've closed the old place in Gisborne, but they've moved everyone here. So inside these sheds here, there are thousands of ducks imprisoned for their meat and their eggs, and they're all crammed in there. They don't have sunlight during the day. They open the ends just to clean them out, and then they close them again, so they don't have any sunlight. The ducks in there, they're grown really fast. They're grown too fast for their bodies, and they can't hold their legs up properly because they're grown to be slaughtered for food in just 6 weeks. So they're just babies when they're slaughtered. A lot of them are still like fluffy and a little bit yellow, but they're massive because they're growing so fast and fed so much. And they're also bred to produce more eggs than they can, that is natural for their bodies, which puts a massive pressure on the insides. And so they develop heart conditions and deformed legs. And so, yeah, during the Ag-Gag debate in Victorian Parliament, the Labor MP, Mark Gepp, said that activists should report any concerns to the authorities and the authorities will take care of it. So we're planning to do that today. I think it's important to also note in these places, particularly because they're in there for so long, that a lot of them develop this thing on their feet called bumblefoot. And so from the footage we've seen and from the evidence that's been given to us, the bumblefoot and in the duck, particularly in the egg shed, because they're full adults. Like they're not adults, but they're about 16 weeks when they start laying eggs. So they've been with no water to bathe in, and they get this thing called bumblefoot, which infects the bottom of their feet, and they get sores, which then becomes infected up into their legs and slowly kills them. So there are ducks in there, and we can see from the footage in that, particularly in that egg shed, that are unable to get up because of the bumblefoot in their feet, and they're like writhing on the floor. They're unable to get to the water or any or their food. And inside those sheds, it's quite they're really easily triggered ducks by any sort of noise or movement. So because there's thousands of them in there constantly, they're moving around and running around. So any of these ducks that can't stand up, they just get trampled over and over. And so you can see from the footage that there's one in particular that's here that just keeps getting run over into the ground, and they die stuck there in a slow, painful death. So yeah, today we're going to follow up with what the Labor MP Mark Gepps has said we should do, and also Democratic Labor MP Bernie Finn, who stated that if we have proof of cruelty, there are ways to ensure it's stopped. So they said to contact the Agriculture Department, the RSPCA or government assistance, and they'll step in and stop the cruelty from occurring. So like with the other activists that are at other locations today, we're going to give the RSPCA a call and report the cruelty that's going on inside here, and these ducks that are slowly dying and suffering that can't get up and don't have any water.
Okay, great. Thank you. We found that Helen, who's outside a chicken flesh factory, has been on hold for quite some time with the RSPCA.
Yeah.
Did you want to try to give Agriculture Victoria a call instead? And do you want us to hold on here while you do that, or come back to you?
Yeah. I'll just get the phone.
Okay. And just to make a point of what you said, Bree, you stated that Bernie Finn had stated that if you had proof that they would act, which is kind of strange considering the law is preventing people from getting proof. So how might he expect that we can call people to act when
if we can't get proof?
We can't? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, just another example of the ludicrous nonsense these politicians are speaking in Parliament. We might just quickly cross back to Helen and see how she's going on the phone there, and we'll come back to you. Is that okay?
Yeah,
thanks.
Sure.
Thanks so much, Bree.
Thanks.
Hi, Helen, are you there? Oh, she's on.
Yeah,
she's talking to someone, so that's good.
Yeah, the address that I can give you would be 22. Let me just double check that. That's Graydon's Road. So yeah, it's as I said, it's close to the 7-Eleven. The closest intersection. I'm just checking on the map now. Just off of Frankston Flinders Road.
Okay, so when I look at Google, it shows me like an aerial view. It's across the road from the 7-Eleven is Jack Thomas from there's sort of a big paddock, and then I can see some sheds. I think 22.
Yes. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, and in normal circumstances, I would have attempted, to help and to rescue these. But however, you may know that the Labour government stated in Parliament recently that I will be severely fined and faced additional charges due to the new Ag-Gag laws introduced by them. So obviously, this is the reason why we're calling you now, so that you can come and help. Yeah. Okay. No, it's just well, as far as I know, it's just chickens on the property. Yeah. Can you just give me an estimation of how long it will be before someone comes out?
All I do is take the numbers and then I'll get that team in Victoria that will for the inspectors, and then they will send it off to the inspectors in a tree. They work by a triage system. So we'll put through, obviously, with a lot of them being crippled or injured.
Okay, so we're just trying to find out how long they're going to take. It took them quite a long time to
you
even
can't
answer.
give me an estimate on how long
but
it
we're
will
not
be
sure
for
how
them to
long
come
they
here.
will.
Okay. So okay, so because a lot of these animals are really in need of assistance right now. So yeah. Yeah. Okay. So just to clarify, sorry, are you saying that there will be a team coming out here? Okay. So you don't know what their protocol details are then. So that means that when you pass this on to the dispatch team, they may not come out. It'll be a case by case, and they may not actually come out.
I imagine they would want to come out to remove the ones that need removing and to have a chat with the owners if they be able to find the owners with the address and have a chat with them, making sure that they
So
know what's happening. I imagine they would if this is a lot of their chickens.
Yeah. When you say you imagine they will come out to check them, you're saying that there's no guarantee that they will come out to check them.
I don't know.
So you're not sure. You're guessing they would. Okay. So okay. So there isn't any guarantee that their RSPCA are actually going to come out and help these chickens. And that's what you're saying. But you can't guarantee it. You can't. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to get that answer from you because we've also been informed that it's quite likely that this location produces RSPCA approved chicken flesh. And I was wondering, do you think it's strange that the Victorian Government has stated that the work of animal rights activists isn't needed, as is Agriculture Victoria and RSPCA, their jake animals, when in fact you are endorsing the exploitation and killing of the very animals you came to protect? And is it not a conflict of interest that you take a portion of the profits from the places that abuse and kill these animals? Yeah. Okay. So the okay, so it's down to the inspectors then. So if I wait here, if I'm here for the entire day and no one turns up, how am I going to be reassured that someone is going to come out? Can somebody contact me? Okay, so you're saying that I won't know the outcome then. So either way, when I hang up the call today, I won't know whether someone's coming out or not. Because it's very unlikely that they will, considering it's a farm that RSPCA approved farm. So okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they probably do know what is. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Okay then. Well, thank you very much for your help today. Then. Okay. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Hi, Helen. We'll just wait for Helen to come back. You there? Can you hear
Yes,
us?
I'm here.
Hi.
Yes.
Yeah, you were wonderfully persistent there. It seems like they were saying that they can't guarantee someone will come out, but they will do their best.
Yeah.
Okay.
It didn't sound like they the lady on the phone was obviously, she was very nice. She, you know, was accommodating me as much as possible, but at the end she just really just said that, you know, it was basically up to the dispatch team as to whether they feel that, you know, it's necessary to come out. She did say that because I'd mentioned that there are crippled and injured animals that are unable to get to food and water, she said that they would, you know, likely investigate it. However, you know, as I mentioned before, if it's an approved, an RSPCA approved shed, then, you know, they already know what's going on inside these sheds, and yeah, they're unlikely to go. So there's no way of knowing, unfortunately, if they're going to go on or they're not.
Right. So the urgency
yeah.
that the fact the politicians told us that they would the animals would receive urgent attention if in need is clearly not happening today, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. And
that's right.
just to clarify,
Unfortunately.
the investigators said they suspected this place might be RSPCA approved. We can't say for 100% if it is, but I can certainly say from personal experience that I've seen the conditions in the RSPCA approved sheds myself and have many others documented these things, and it's very similar to what we're seeing in there from the footage we put up this morning. So it wouldn't be a shock if it actually was it was that. So thanks so much, Helen. We're going to go to another activist now. So we're we'll we might cross back to you later. We'll see how we go. But thanks so much for being there. Thanks to everyone.
No worries.
It's really great. Okay.
Great. Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Harley, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi,
Yeah,
Harley.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. How is it going there? Thanks for being out there today. Where are you?
Yeah, so we are in South Gippsland, on stolen land, of course. Let's just acknowledge that. And we're actually at a rabbit farm. And this rabbit farm behind us, so the sheds you can see in the background, is a farm that was exposed last year by Animal Liberation. So they uncovered shocking footage from inside showing rabbits with horrible injuries piled on top of each other. And we're here today. So yeah, and after this expose of the shocking conditions and the cruelty inside, and we did see footage from that investigation in the video released this morning. So if you haven't seen that, if you missed that in the live stream, check that out. And inside this building, so the one right behind us, rabbits are confined to small, barren cages, and they suffer debilitating, untreated illnesses and injuries, which they frequently die from in intense pain. So the footage shows, as I mentioned, rabbits in extremely small cages with wire floors, which you can imagine kind of spending your whole life walking on wire floors, and the injuries, including abscesses and infections and sores that they have no chance to heal from. And we've been told by this government, as people have already said, that if we are aware that animals are in distress, that we should contact the authorities. We are aware, we know that right here there are animals in extreme amounts of distress. And yet, in this case, this is a case where the authorities have been contacted and nothing has been done. So as others already said as well, the Labor government have attempted to justify pushing through this bill and pushing through these Ag-Gag laws. And they're laws which they target whistleblowers, they target activists, and they claim that animals have protection under the law. We know that this is a lie. This is a blatant lie. What's more, what the bill allowed was it gave a platform while it was being debated to allow for more lies and for more corruption. So if you look at the debate, there's so many instances of extremely conservative, extremely kind of people with politicians with very worrying views that I don't think represent most of us as a people, that were using this bill as a chance to kind of push them through. And we've already heard some of the statements from Labor MPs about how, if we have evidence of the cruelty, we can contact the RSPCA. And we also heard about the Democratic Labor MP, Bernie Finn. And I'm going to reread the quote, what he said. And a reminder that he was given this platform to say this because Labor push through this bill and introduce this bill to introduce these new Ag-Gag laws. So during the debate, Democratic Labour MP Bernie Finn said, and this is a quote, "If you have got proof that animals are being mistreated, if you have got proof that animals are being cruelly treated, there are ways to ensure that it is stopped. You've got the Agriculture Department, you've got the RSPCA, you have got every form of government assistance known to man to report it. They would step in and they would stop the cruelty if it was occurring." So, I mean, we've already seen just today that that's not the case, that in these instances, we know without a shadow of a doubt that extreme instances of violence are happening at these locations that we're at. And these authorities that we're said will stop the cruelty, they're not stepping in. And I think this case is particularly typical of that. So this shows just how false that is. So when Animal Liberation exposed this footage, they reviewed it and they reported the rabbit farm to Agriculture Victoria. So they went through the appropriate channels and they requested immediate action because of what was seen in the footage that they had access to. And despite these clear signs of suffering and cruelty, and as well as they gathered comments from veterinarians who focused on rabbit care, and then a government spokesperson came out and stated that after an investigation, they found that the living conditions met codes of practice requirements and that health issues were being treated. They also stated that no further action would be taken. And I think quite significantly as well, even despite that, they also said that the footage, the evidence gathered, was inadmissible by the authorities as it was captured covertly. So I think, this just shows the situation that we're in, whereas we're said that if we have proof of animal suffering and violence in these industries and cruelty, then we can present that proof, but then these kind of bodies will investigate. But then there's no way of gathering this proof because whistleblowers and activists are being subject to these incredibly harsh penalties. So it's just this ridiculous catch-22 situation, which there's no winner out of it. And there's definitely massive losers in the forms of these animals who are suffering and dying in these awful conditions. So I actually grew up really close by in this area in South Gippsland. I'm very familiar with this area. And I also have 2 rabbits at home, and I know Ruth has rabbits at home as well. So, we're all here talking about our rabbits and how loving and gentle and curious they are. And if you watch the footage and if you see the footage, you see these rabbits living in filth with horrific injuries. And just that knowing that our government will not stand up for them is absolutely heartbreaking. It's devastating, really. And this place is the perfect example of exactly what we're talking about today. This place is horrendous. No one I don't think can watch that footage and say what happens inside there is not outrageous and horrifying. And this is also, we're talking about rabbits here. So these are animals that many people see as companions. These are animals that are kind of symbolic of, being cute and cuddly and friendly and kind of part of that sphere of, oh, these are animals that we care about as humans. They're not even kind of other farmed animals who are treated even worse than this. So if this is the way rabbits are being treated, then this is the response to instances of cruelty to rabbits being reported, then what are we going to see when it's pigs? What are we going to see when it's chickens? We're already seeing that today. So in this case, Animal Liberation contacted the authorities. They asked for help to stop the suffering. And this case is proof that the government does not care what happens to animals. And they are determined instead to criminalize those who would stand up and defend them. So I'd really recommend, if you haven't already, to check out the investigation at al.org.au. So if you look up Animal Liberation, you can find the investigation as well as the outcome and the no further action statement by the government, as well as when they deemed that the evidence was inadmissible. And I just want to finish by saying that, we can't stay silent in the face of this repression. And we must continue to stand up and speak out against these violent industries, which profit from exploitation and death. So thank you so much for everyone who's here today. And I'll hand back to you, Kristen.
Thanks so much, Harley. That's heartbreaking. I know that the footage that we included in our short film that we published this morning from Animal Liberation was just a snippet of the more extended footage of what's going on right behind you there. It's really devastating to even think about. I think you made a good point when you said that these are animals that people connect with even more than your other farm animals often, and still this is what happens. So it just really highlights the point that there is no protection for farmed animals whatsoever, and there's these codes of practice that that cause that. So I know Animal Liberation is calling for a independent Office of Animal Protection as well for this very reason, because the agencies that are supposed to be doing this are compromised, and in the sense of RSPCA, charitable as well, which is ludicrous. So yeah, we need a proper independent office that will act. And then we also have to acknowledge that we're making the point that we're not saying that would make it okay, that it would make it okay if they fixed these conditions. We're just highlighting the lies of the government to imply so the public believe these animals are protected, so they keep going with habits that they should end and stop eating and wearing these animals. So just to make that very clear, we're not asking for improvements, we're asking for abolition, but we want to make the point to the consumer that they're being lied to in Parliament by people who they voted for, and they deserve to know the truth. And as a nation, we should be able to be honest enough to have this discussion and be honest enough to say there is no protection for these animals, so that people can start opening up their minds to that and understand that, and also stop criminalizing the only people who are standing up for them. And that's a crime. Then I don't, what kind of world are we living in when it is a crime to help someone who is suffering? And that is exactly what's happening in this country and around the world. So I think this rabbit footage is really imperative to get that across. So thank you for being there today, and we'll see you later today, Harley, and your team that are there. Thanks very much. I'm very grateful. So we might just cut back to Bree. We'll just see if Bree's available and what's going on there. Have a look, see if any situations change, if she's managed to get through to anyone. I'll just have a look. Hey, are you there? Bree, can you hear us?
Yeah. Okay.
She looks like she's on the phone.
On the phone to the Ag department.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
Bree's talking to Agriculture Victoria.
If you do come out today, will you let me know that you've come and what happens? No, so how will I? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you'll let us know that you've come. Yep. Okay. Excellent. Yeah. Can you let us know if you don't come today as well? If that makes sense. But if I don't hear from you today, I guess I can assume that you haven't been able to make it out today. So how many inspectors would you usually send to a farm at once? 2. Okay. And do you take your own footage as well once you go in? Yeah. 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 Okay. And so how many other complaints do you have? Like you said, you had to triage if it's an emergency. Is there any that will be before this duck farm? Yeah. 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 Yeah, because we're just concerned that because they know we're here, like, and they probably get wind of the fact we're making a complaint, that they might, go in and, remove anyone who's suffering and kill them straight away and remove their bodies so you can't see it. Yeah. Yeah. Someone. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And if you pull someone out that's injured, like one of the ones that has really bad bumblefoot, that will need like emergency vet treatment and will need to be straight on like antibiotics and have an operation on their feet, will you do that? Will you organise that, or will you euthanize them? Yeah. Okay, cool. So, but you would take them out. You wouldn't just like, because it's a meat farm, you wouldn't be like, they can just die. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for being really helpful actually, and listening to us. And I look forward to hearing from
Do you
you.
think it's worth asking them why they didn't find that for themselves? Why they haven't discovered this
Yeah.
place? And if they've got the
Yeah, that'd be fine. Hang on, could you just hold on for a second?
Do you think it's worth asking them why the department didn't discover this animal cruelty?
Yeah. Do you like as a matter of course, do you sort of go around the farms and just do random inspections, or do you wait for people to give you a call and find out? So, like, would you have discovered this yourself? So you always rely on reports. Yeah. Yeah, because you're probably underfunded. Yeah. Yeah. So if we didn't come here and if we didn't have this footage, you would never have known about this, because no one would have just come unless there was a complaint. Yeah, potentially not. Oh. So you would encourage people to keep making these reports? Yeah. Okay. Said yes. Okay, that's good. Thank you. All right. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Bye.
So
That was Lara.
that was interesting to listen to. We missed the beginning, but we kind of got the gist
Yeah.
that
We filmed it. So
oh, great. Okay. So
yeah, on a camera.
Lara, sorry. So they were saying that you made the point that they don't check places. I mean, it's ludicrous to think that with the millions and millions and millions of animals in this state being confined and farmed and killed, that they would be able to, by any means, maintain some kind of level of well-being and prevent suffering is a ridiculous concept in the first place. But it was interesting that the person on the phone sounded like they acknowledged that they depend on people to expose these places before they can even find out. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what she said. She said that they only, for a matter of like, only if they're going out on another welfare check or doing some other sort of business and they notice it, that they wouldn't even know about it. Otherwise, they wouldn't know about these places at all. And she said that she really appreciates that we can make these calls, and did acknowledge that this is the only way they'll find out.
Right. So Agriculture Victoria, the politicians are telling us that that we can't go into these places, and we'll get horrific fines if we do, and that the farmers are the ones looking after them, whereas the people taking the calls and the people who work in the inspectorate departments, sounds like they're acknowledging that, yeah, there is no way for them to know other than if we do. So there's this circle around, which Harley highlighted before as well, and Helen and Gary. So yeah, we've all had the same experience today. It sounds like we're expected to be the ones to help the animals, but we're not allowed by the law.
No, and it's the only way they're going to find out. Like she admitted that there's just no way.
Yeah.
And she said that they will try to. She's in Geelong, so she said she'll try to send someone today, and that she'll let me know if they came, but they won't let me know the outcome of it.
Yeah, which is often the case as well, isn't it? They say that it's confidential information, and from my understanding and what we saw from the rabbit farm, where nothing came of that, and that footage was as horrific as the duck footage we've seen. So Why would you expect that anything would happen here? And as we know, legally, it probably, even if they wanted to prosecute, they can't, because the codes of practice protect this situation. So yeah, thanks so much for being there, everyone. Did you want to add anything else, Bree, before we go?
Should we call? Do you want me to call the RSPCA as well now?
Yeah, give them a call and we can update everyone later how that went. I think it'd be worthwhile for sure. And to RSPCA approve,
if we're not on hold,
duck flesh yet? I don't think they do. Just chickens and pigs and eggs at this point. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No, they haven't.
Yeah.
They definitely haven't approved this place.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
So there's still bodies out the front as well. They haven't actually cleaned them all up. So they've pulled them out of the shed. So they've just left them on the ground.
Right. Yep. And do they do the same in the duck sheds as they do in the chicken sheds, where when the birds are, if they are thorough and they do see birds suffering, they just break their necks on the spot? Do they do a similar thing in the duck farms? Do you know?
It doesn't seem like it. I've seen where ducks are just trampled into the ground up to their necks, so they can't move, and they just die. They just die there, stuck in the mud. So they would have had to have been there for days and days in the condition they're in. So I don't think they clean them out like that at all. I think they just leave them, and then they just, once they're dead, they just pull them out and throw them on the ground. And obviously they haven't even put them in a bin or anything. They've just left them laying there dead with their feet in there.
Yeah, right. That's the farmers that love their animals that we heard so much about in the Victorian Parliament. I know that
they care enough to call the police, though.
Of course. Yeah, right. Did I notice with the chicken meat farms as well that the birds, it depends on the location, but there's very much often dead birds scattered throughout the sheds as well in a similar situation. But I've also noticed more recently that that's occurring less, but the birds, each day you might be there, will see the suffering still there, but there's less bodies, which implies that since activists have been exposing the dead bodies laying throughout these sheds, that some businesses are getting better at cleaning up the mess each day, so that can't be documented as well, because we know statistically the deaths are still happening. It's just that some places are getting better at cleaning them up, so we can't document them. So it's just an observation we made recently that I'm sure is happening. So thanks for being there. We'll find out from you later how you go with RSPCA. I might just see if everyone's still there, if we can bring in everyone in a shot maybe. I'm not sure if I can even bring this many people in one shot, but I'm going to give it a go. We'll just see how we go there. Helen, are you there? And Harley, can you hear me? No? Might just quickly say hello to everyone. Here we go. We've lost Gary, but we'll say hi to everyone else here. Sorry, there we go. Is everyone's there? We've just lost Gary, but just wanted to thank you all. Has there been any change in the situations with any of you? Helen, have you had any phone calls back?
It's a bit difficult to hear, Christine, because there's a lot of traffic going past, but no, there hasn't been any further movement. I haven't received any calls or anything. I'm not expecting to be honest. It's very unlikely that they will come out to investigate, but we have no way of knowing if they will or not, so unfortunately. But I just want to say thanks to everyone that's come here today. It's obviously a very cold morning, and they've been excellent here today. So thank you to everyone else in the other locations too. And thank you to you, Christine, for organising this event and putting it together so that we can call out the lies of the government. So,
no, thank you all. And I just wanted to also add that people can join us this afternoon at Parliament House in Victoria, where we will protest outside the government, to continue to highlight the lies and the atrocities that they're supporting by the millions across this entire state, and to highlight that they lied and that there is no protection for farmed animals whatsoever. And I know, we all know that if anyone does come out to these locations, that nothing will get done. So let's keep pushing that truth to the public and breaking through this myth that somehow we can raise and kill animals to kill them, and somehow they'll have a good life in the process. So thanks everyone so much. We'll catch up soon, and we'll see you all at Parliament House at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Much love to you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Love you too.
Bye.
Love you. Bye.